Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to May Q&A. Now this is a big Q&A, guys. I've got a lot of questions to get through here. If you do want to become a part of this, you can. All you need to do is become a supporter via Patreon or a donator via PayPal. That's it. Simple as that. So you can do that from as little as $1 a month. So I can't possibly get round to everyone who submits questions to me every day, just in general on the channel, Facebook, that sort of stuff. I just humanly can't do it, guys. So that's why I've had to limit it to this. So it's helping me out, and then I help you out in return. So let's get into this month's questions. So the first question I got here is from Stephen. He says, Ozzie, I can shoot my Savage 22 LR at 50 meters hole through hole. And with my new Hauer 223, I can shoot a 25mm 4-shot group at 100 meters. I then take my 223 out hunting and can't hit anything. I think I'm more scared of the kick, even though it's not much, and the trigger feels like it takes forever to break compared to my 22. What's your thoughts? Mate, that's an interesting one, because a lot of people, can go to a range and they can put hole through hole. But then when it comes to, the real environment and being able to shoot, it's completely different. Some people get a little bit jittery when they're looking through the scope there at, actual animals if they haven't done it before. And once again, like you say, you can get a little bit scared of recoil and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people out there who are recoil sensitive. So a lot of the time, it's not so much the recoil, but it's the noise that goes with it. A lot of people preempt that. Look, I don't know, because I haven't seen you shoot, Steve, but mate, I'm really thinking here the best solution for you would be to get some snap caps, okay? And why I say to do that is because obviously if you get some snap caps, you can practice dry firing. But what I'd like you to do is if you can get a friend to help you out with this, get them to load your magazine at a range, or if you're out hunting, okay? So for example, if you've got, like, say, a 5-round magazine, okay, get them to put 2 or 3 snap caps in. Don't obviously get them to tell you how many they're putting in. Let them just put a random amount in there and in random order, okay? So you might fire the first shot, it might be a live round, next shot may be a snap cap, okay? So obviously when you're cycling that action, don't go looking at it. Really test yourself with this. And the reason why I say, to do that is because I'm betting that, one, you're preempting that recoil and the noise, so therefore you're snapping at that trigger, okay? It is a heavier trigger too, so it's going to take, obviously, more poundage to make it break compared to what you're saying here with your 22. So I think it's a combination of the both. So what you need to do is you need to obviously practice just that slow squeeze of the trigger finger, okay? Don't jerk, don't just, snap at it. Otherwise, you're going to have accuracy problems. The other thing too, obviously, is when you're out hunting, well, a lot of the time game don't stay still, so they're on the move. So that presents further challenges if you're only used to shooting at stationary targets. But I really think that this may be the problem here, mate. Please try that. And if that happens, or get your friend to film you especially, and you'll be able to see, how you react when it's actually a snap cap and you don't know. And then if you jerk that trigger, you preempt it, you snap at it, you'll see the front of the barrel. So as I say, this is the barrel. You'll see the front of the barrel move, okay, when you snap that trigger. And that causes a lot of inaccuracy, with your shooting. So yeah, please try that. See how you go. If it does happen to you, then obviously you can keep practicing, with snap caps until you get that nice smooth trigger pull, where you're not snapping or jerking at that trigger. So yeah, please let me know how you go. Next question I got here is from Lee, and he says, "Hi mate, in Queensland, legislation for weapons storage, it states that the firearm has to be stored with the action broken. This is a bit vague in regards to category H. Is having the magazine removed and no round in the chamber enough? Having the slide back in storage is not great for the recoil spring, so that's not ideal. I fail to see why the action needs to be broken when stored in a locked safe." He finishes off and says, "Guess it's just the usual QPS weapon licensing branch, clueless rules." Well, mate, look, 100%, I don't see why there's a need to have a bolt removed or the action broken when it's inside a locked safe and also unloaded. I just don't see the point. However, What they mean here is, you know, if you've got a bolt action, then obviously remove the bolt. If it's a semi-auto, you know, like obviously your pistol or even a revolver, you know, they want that action broken. So we'll keep to the semi-auto because that's what you're talking about here. That's fine. You can leave a magazine in it unloaded, no problem at all, but that action must be broken. One of the very early videos I did was the TAPCO chamber safety flags, okay? I find them excellent. So in other words, it's still going to fulfill your requirements under legislation because the action is broken, okay? So it's not all the way forward, you know, you've got it broken. It doesn't matter whether it's broken by a couple of millimeter or it's broken by an inch or two. It's still broken and therefore compliant. So, mate, all mine get stored with that. That way, you know, you haven't eased the spring, you know, entirely, like it's not, you know, forward as far as it can go. However, it's still a lot better than if that slide was all the way back and you don't have that full tension on the spring, if you know what I mean. So have a look at that, mate. TAPCO, that's TAPCO. Next question I got here is from Shane. He says, hi Ozzie, there's a lot said by lots of shooters that a rifle won't perform at its best until it's bedded. What's your thoughts on that? And should it be free floated as well? Well, mate, look, I don't bed any of my actions or anything like that. I don't do it. I've got a number of firearms that are free floating, so the barrel is free floating. If I can shoot with a 22 or rimfire there at 1/2 inch for 10 shots at 50 yards, or, you know, even if it's like 0.6 of an inch, it's just a nice hole. I'm happy with that. If you're using a centerfire, if you're going out to 100 yards and you're shooting 1/2 inch there, or, you know, once again, like maybe 0.6, 0.65 of an inch for say 5 shots, then I'm happy. I don't see the need to then go ahead and bed the firearm. So that's just me personally, mate. I know there's a lot of people who are right into bench rest competition that will disagree naturally, but it comes back to what our use is. You know, like most of us are out there, we're doing a bit of shooting at the range, having a bit of fun, and then we go out and we do a little bit of hunting, don't we? So, you know, what really is going to be the difference, hypothetically, that is, if you're shooting 1/2 inch or maybe 0.4 of an inch, you know, at 100. So, yeah, I tend to just be happy with what I get. If it's shooting accurately like that, I don't find any need to go to any further steps. Next question I got here is from Sam, and he says, hey Ozzie, what are your thoughts on the Savage A22R 22 Magnum? And if you haven't had any experience with it, what would you recommend as a decent brand staying under $1,200? I'll say that. He says $1,200-ish here. So staying under $1,200-ish for the rifle. A bit tongue twisted there, sorry. Okay, well, mate, no, I haven't personally used one, you know, 22 Magnum. However, in 22 Magnum, I've had obviously the Lithgow 22 Magnum. That shot very well, you know, even out to 100 yards. The other rifle that I had that I did the review on, and I kept it for quite some time, and I only sold that sort of about sort of 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and that was the Ruger 77 22 Magnum, the stainless version. And when I did the review, you know, accuracy was okay. And one of the ammos that I couldn't get at the time because it was on back order was the Hornady 30 grain VMAX. So what happened was I had a friend drop over and he had some 30 grain VMAX, and this was probably a couple of months after I did the review. And I said, oh, just out of curiosity, would you mind if I put that through my Ruger? I'm really keen to sort of see how it goes, you know, if it's you know, much more accurate than the best ammo that I had tried on that day, you know, when I did the review. And yeah, obviously he said, yeah, sure, go for it. I couldn't believe it. Like, this thing was just drilling like just like a 10-cent piece at 100. You know, we were looking at you know, around about that 1/2 inch for 5 shots there at 100 with a 22 Magnum. So I was just absolutely stoked with it. I still couldn't get any of the ammunition because it was on back order for about sort of like that 6 to 8 month period. And then I just got annoyed with it. I ended up selling the rifle, and I tell you what, I actually regret selling it because, you know, there's heaps of that ammo around now, and I just found it a great lightweight, you know, rifle that I could take out hunting. And yeah, just, you know, as a 22 Magnum is, it's good for a lot of different circumstances. So, mate, they're the two that I like. The only other thing I can vouch for is the 22 Ruger Americans. Now, I've still got mine that I bought, 5-6 years ago, whatever it was when we were on parity there. I've still got it now. It still shoots accurately. I just mounted a new scope on it just this last week, and it's still shooting fantastically. So I haven't used the Ruger American in 22 Magnum yet, but honestly, mate, I really couldn't see you going wrong with one. They seem to do a good job for what they are, price-wise. So they're sort of the ones that I've had experience with. So, mate, sorry, I haven't used that Savage in 22 Magnum, so I can't really 100% vouch for it. My personal feelings on it are, Ruger's just that little bit better than Savage, I've found. Now, I know there's a lot of guys who will get annoyed about that, but hey, look, that's just what I've found through my own practical use of various Savage and Ruger firearms. I do like the Rugers a little bit better. So yeah, that's what I'd be looking at. Next question I got here is from Matt, and he says, "Hey Ozzie, the property I'm living on is having issues with wild dogs. This isn't the first time they've had them either. They've decided to use 1080 to get rid of them, but have also said I'm allowed to shoot them if I see them. Do you have any tips on when and how to hunt wild dogs?" Well, Matt, first of all, mate, I don't like 1080. I mean, look, other people can do what they want naturally, but 1080 is just indiscriminatory. It just hits everything. So if you've got, like, for example, a goanna that digs up some of that bait, next minute it's dead. If you've got birds that come down and dig up the meat, same thing, they're dead as well. And you can have obviously foxes and stuff come through and get that, and meanwhile, they are a feral pest, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people get this false sense that they've done really well with 1080 baits because they might put down, say, 40 of them, then they go back a week later and there's only 2 of them left, but they don't know what they've actually poisoned. And when you look at animals dying from 1080, it's a terrible thing to see. It's not an instant, painless death. So that's why I'm surprised, that it actually hasn't been outlawed, because it is actually quite cruel to see them suffer. So that's my personal reasons. I don't like using 1080. I really don't. But getting back to this, mate, if you're going to shoot them, look, there's so many things I could run over with you. I don't know what the terrain is like where your property is, but basically you can do a couple of things. You can walk around the property and see if you can come across them, okay? I don't know how big your property is. I don't know the frequency of the dog visits. That's sort of additional information that I need to know. But yeah, you can walk around the property and see if you can see signs of where basically their camp is, because they all do have an area where they like to camp out, and then they'll wander from there. So you'll see like a lot of bones, if they've been dragging kills back to where they sleep and stuff. The other thing too is obviously calling them in, okay? So you can use electronic callers. I find, honestly, my own voice, I just find that so much more successful when I howl, maybe because I've just, after the years of doing feral pest control, I've sort of got it down pat where I can get that response from them. So I find that useful. And then obviously there's lures, and what I mean by lures is like scented lures. So you can use things from, have a look at Western Trapping Supplies. So plug that into the internet. Western Trapping Supplies, they're up at Toowoomba, and they've got a whole heap of lures from, like a dog in heat urine, and then a mixture of that and other different smelly things that dogs love that will actually bring them in. So, that's what you can do as well. One thing I will say, but usually during the day, especially in the hotter months, you won't find the dogs moving around, like in the hottest parts of the day. They're camped out under a tree or a bush or something like that. And of a night time, they're very active. Also in the winter time, being, 1st of June now, at the time of doing this video, we've just started winter. So, wild dogs are pretty active during the winter time, especially of a night and then early hours of the morning. So, mate, that's all the advice I can give you without not knowing your personal circumstances on how big your property is, where it is, the terrain, the frequency of the dogs, how many dogs are in a pack, for example. You know, because like I find like if you go sort of way out west, there'll be dogs and they might get around in maybe 1 or 2 numbers, and they'll come past every day or every couple of days. But then you get places here that are predominantly in, you know, close to the southeast corner of Brisbane, and you know, you can have dogs with pack numbers, you know, up to 30 in numbers and even more. So depending on where you are and how you're targeting them, yeah, give me a little bit more information, mate, and I'm more than happy to give you some advice there. Now, the next question I got here is from Daniel, and he says, "Hey, Ozzie, just wondering if you're going to be doing any more pistol reviews this year, maybe to your beginner series. What about what to get for your first pistol or target shooting pistol video?" Mate, great idea. You know, I don't know why I haven't done it sooner, to be honest. But yeah, more pistol reviews coming, mate. I've got something I've had in the works there for a little while. I'm just trying to get round to it because obviously, you know, it's not as easy for me because I've then got to go to a pistol range, but we've got to make sure that, you know, obviously it's not being used the day, you know, and we don't have other people around us and stuff. So we can just film and not interrupt anyone or vice versa. So it is a little harder, but mate, yeah, look, I'm still keen on doing the pistol reviews. I can still do them at any time. So definitely I will do more for you. Next question I got here is from Edwin. He says, "Hey Ozzie, can you recommend any thermal scopes? Cheers." Well, mate, look, straight up, I think the Fleur ones are pretty good. Now, I've used a lot of their monoculars. However, you know, obviously they transition that same technology into actual thermal scopes. And the one thing I've noticed with thermal, now look, I'm far from an expert with regards to this, but a lot of the thermal stuff, you know, you'll get in like 320 resolution. Okay, now usually I find with that 320 resolution, like if you look around, you can definitely see objects, they'll stand out, you know, with that heat signature, but a lot of the time until they move, you don't know what they are. Now I was using a Fleur monocular and having a play with it, and I could see some rabbits and stuff at about 100 yards, and I looked at them and I'm thinking, I can see the heat signature. Are they definitely rabbits or is it a bird or what's going on? But then when they moved, I could see what it was from there. So I found that a bit sort of frustrating, and that's why I didn't end up going ahead and buying one. What I wanted was one with better clarity, so I thought, oh, I'll just wait. They do have ones with 640 resolution. The thing is, you're paying big dollars for it, you know. It's up there, you know, 8-10 grand plus, you know, depending on the model. So they're a lot more expensive. So I'm really just waiting for them to come down in price so that there's a good thermal scope out there that's going to suit my needs. So that's my own personal preference there, mate. But there's, look, numerous ones out there from different manufacturers. What you need to make yourself familiar with is what those specifications mean, okay, especially like your hertz rate and also the resolution, because ultimately that's going to tell you what to expect, you know, clarity wise when looking through the scope. Next question I got here is from Pat, and he says, "Hey Ozzie, hope all is going well for you. Could you explain the difference between 7.62 and 5.56 with the respective 308 and 223? Also, do competitive rifle clubs allow the 308? Would it be possible to review various chronographs as well? Cheers, Pat." Okay, mate, a couple of questions in one. Yes, I can do more chronograph ones. I've only done one at the moment, but have a look. I've got the playlist on YouTube there. With regards to 7.62 and 308, completely interchangeable, the same, no dramas. You can use each of the ammo in rifles chambered for each, okay? So, or the other, it's no problem there. So in other words, if you've got a 308 and you've got some 7.62 by 51 NATO ammo, you can use it in the 308, no problem at all. Now, with regards to 223 and 5.56, now what I'm going to do is, because I've answered this before very thoroughly, is go to my Q&A episode 18 and have a look at question 8. Okay, so Q&A episode 18, question 8, because I go into great detail about the difference between 223 and 5.56, and also answer a question about, you know, would I personally use 5.56 NATO in a 223 chambered rifle. Okay, so please take a look at that. Next question I've got here is from Rosalind. Hi Ozzie, what are the rules around carrying weapons to the range? Can weapons, magazines and ammunition be carried in the same bag, or do they have to be separated? Obviously I don't mean loaded. I've just bought a hard case and was wondering if I can have the pistol and magazines together, and same with the rifle bag. It seems there are many ways to take the laws. Well, yes there are. Rosalind, what I'll do is I'll just explain, things for here in Queensland. The storage laws are a little bit different when you go state to state, okay? So I don't know. I mean, I've never lived in other states here in Australia, so I'm not familiar with their storage laws. However, here in Queensland, when you're transporting a firearm, okay, that comes under the weapons regulation, okay? So if you have a look at section 96 of the weapons regulation, then you'll be able to see, what the laws are there. But in a nutshell, it clearly says there that the firearm should be in a locked boot, okay? If you don't have a locked boot, then it needs to be in a securely closed container. So that means like just a rifle case, it could be a zip-up one, it can be just like a pelican case, inside the vehicle, but out of sight, okay? So in other words, it needs to be out of sight somewhere in the vehicle if you don't have a boot. Because obviously if you have a ute, for example, then you don't have a boot, do you? However, a lot of utes will have, a metal toolbox, and if it's fixed to the vehicle, then you can also transport it in that. There's no problem there. The one thing you need to understand is that it needs to be obviously unloaded, because part of the weapons regulation there clearly also says that all firearms or weapons must be unloaded until the time arises that it's time to shoot, basically. So if you're transporting the firearm, then obviously that's not a time to shoot. So yeah, just be careful of that one. You don't want to obviously have ammunition sitting in magazines, all right, because that's not how it's required under the explosives regulation. The explosives regulation there is very specific that basically ammunition needs to be in its original packaging, or in packaging designed to separate the rounds individually, okay? So that's very specific there, and you can't store it obviously with a firearm, so it needs to be in a separate container, all right? So if you've got your magazines in your firearm, look, no problem there, but provided they're unloaded naturally, okay? So I hope that sort of explains it, but if you want to have a look at it in detail, have a look at the weapons regulation, because it really outlines a lot of it in great detail there and does give you some examples. Now we've got one other question from Rosalind. Sorry, another quick question. What are your thoughts on the Allen gunsock scope rifle / shotgun? Do they work, or are they a gimmick? I've never seen them. Like when you've written this, I've thought, okay, what is this? So obviously we're talking about a gunsock, like a case basically, that you just slip over your firearm. I'm hoping that's what you mean here, Rosalind. I mean, I don't know. I've not used them because I just use normal rifle bags. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't answer that question for you. Next question I got here is from Sebastian. He says, hi Ozzie, how come we hardly see any lever action rifles on your channel? Because maybe you can help me with mine. I recently bought a brand new Marlin 1894C and 357 Magnum. Besides the gun not being sighted in for windage at all, I have the problem that it hits really low when I use 357 ammo. 38 special rounds hit just fine, but the stronger 357 rounds, same brand Gecko and same bullet weight, 158 grain, and the same bullet shape jacketed hollow point, hit 15 centimeters lower than the 38 special at a distance of a target at 25 meters. Any idea what might be going wrong? Of course, you cannot come up with a precise remote diagnosis, but maybe you've had some similar problems, or maybe a friend of yours did. Thanks again for your great content. Greetings from Germany. Well, mate, thanks very much for the question, Sebastian. It is very hard to try to diagnose without looking at the rifle. But the one thing that I would be doing here, I'm not too sure, like, are you still just using the open sights here, or do you have a scope on there? Either way, what I would be doing is I'd be shooting it further than 25 meters. So go out to 50 meters, go out to 100 meters and fire both of the ammunition types through there and just see what the results are from there. The only other thing I could possibly suggest, and look, I might be going way out on a limb here, but it's just to try to give you, as many options as possible. Usually, if someone's shooting, and they snap or jerk that trigger, okay, what usually happens is it will drop the shot. If you've got a right-handed person, normally it drops it down to about the 7, 8 o'clock position when you're looking at your target there. So what I'm wondering, and this has just crossed my mind, are you preempting the 357 Magnum rounds a bit more over the 38? Look, like I said, I could be completely wrong, but once again, that's just something that's come across my mind. So I'd be trying two things, okay? One is shooting that at a longer distance than 25 meters to really see what's going on, because for me, 25 meters, those rounds through a rifle are just starting to get going. I'd give it a better distance to really diagnose it. And then, are you snapping at those rounds, those 357 Magnum rounds? So the only other way that I could fix that for myself, if it was me, would be get a friend or someone else at the range there to load a couple of snap caps just randomly in the magazine and then shoot it, okay? So then obviously when you get to the snap cap, and you'll be surprised, you get to the snap cap, then all of a sudden you snap on that trigger or jerk the trigger, and you'll be able to see it, and you'll also be able to feel it clear as day. So that might be another reason why they're going a little bit lower as well. It's very hard to look at an issue with a firearm, especially if I haven't seen the firearm and, obviously shot it myself to try to work out what's going on. But I hope that's given you a couple of ideas that you can try. So the next question I got here is from John. He says, "G'day Ozzie, if my memory serves me correctly, you posted a video a while ago of you shooting your Anschutz 22 LR out to a range of 300 yards and meters. Are you able to elaborate on your scope, mount, rail and setup and the ammo you used that allowed you guys to get out to those distances? Currently I have a CZ455 in 22 LR equipped with a Nikon ProStaff 3 to 9x40 scope and fail to get out beyond 130 or so meters using CCI standard velocity ammunition. I do understand that some people are able to shoot out to those distances with open sights. However, I'd like to know what options are available, scopes, MOA, rails, etc., to those with 22 LRs who would like to stretch it out past the 50 to 100 meters without compromising its ability to shoot out at distance of 30 and 50 meters. Cheers, mate, John." Okay, so first of all, John, let's talk about a little bit ballistics, okay? I'm not going to bore you too much with it, but a little bit about ballistics. So, if you're using standard velocity ammunition with a 22, now most 22s are sighted in at 50 yards or 50 meters. I'm sure most of us will agree on that. Once you go out to 200 yards there, you're looking at about a 27 MOA drop using standard velocity ammunition, okay? So you've got to have 27 MOA of adjustment in your scope to be able to zero it at that 200. And then if you're using high velocity ammunition, it's 20 MOA of adjustment at 200 yards, okay? So that's obviously a lot better. Now, when you go out to 300, things really increase there, okay? So 50 MOA of adjustment you need with standard velocity ammunition, or about 40 MOA of adjustment for high velocity ammunition at 300 yards. So that presents a few problems, doesn't it? Like you say, you've got to be able to get out there, and depending on what scope you get, a lot of it doesn't have, the free amount of MOA adjustment in it to reach that zero at that distance. So what do? So on the Anschutz I was using Anschutz 1710. Now I got a rail from DIP, okay, DIP. I think it's called Diverse Innovative Products. Correct me if I'm wrong. I should have written that down before. I just wrote DIP, but that's what it stands for, something like that. You won't miss it when you see it though. Now they make a lot of rails there for rimfires, okay? So I had a 25 MOA rail. So obviously that, and then I was using the Loophole VX Freedom rimfire, and that was a 3 to 9x40 scope. And also on the bottom of the crosshair, we had 20 MOA basically hash marks, you know, so bullet drop compensators. So that helped even more if I needed it, but I was fine. I could zero it in. So yeah, the good news is they make a lot of rails for CZ. Okay, so DIP make a 15 MOA and a 30 MOA rail for CZ. So by all means, mate, have a look at them, because that's really going to help you, you know, get out to those extra distances. As for where to get them from, Delta Tactical here in Australia, you know, distribute them. However, I don't know if they've got them in stock. You just have to check with them. Also, if you're, you know, going to be waiting a while, you can buy directly from the US. However, not too sure how you'll go with the exchange rate currently if you get one of the rails in from the US. Obviously, you don't need any permits to bring in a simple rail, okay? So it's a matter of just purchasing it, but it just depends on how much they're going to hit you for postage as well. So the other thing I wanted to just touch on too was the difference between standard velocity and high velocity ammo. Now, the ammo I was using that day was RWS high velocity 40 grain hollow point. For whatever reason, that and shoots of mine just absolutely loves that ammo far above anything else I feed it. Even when I put match ammo in it, this high velocity ammo seems to shoot better. So I'm certainly not arguing there. So where I'm going with this is normally high velocity ammunition in a 22 won't be used for, you know, match competition shooting, especially out to those long ranges, okay? Because obviously, you know, with high velocity ammunition, it's traveling just above the speed of sound when it leaves that muzzle. Then the problem is, as it goes and it travels out that distance, it's going through that transonic zone. So in other words, it's dropping back from that high velocity down to, you know, subsonic, or, you know, below that high velocity range. So, and that's what causes a lot of problems with aerodynamics with projectiles. Okay, so that's just physics. That's the way it is, and you can't really escape that. So that's why a lot of people will use 22 standard velocity or match ammo, because it's not having to travel through a transonic zone. It's just already below the speed of sound, and it will just keep continuing, you know, on as you shoot it out with distance. However, the negative on that, as you found out, is you must compensate a lot more for your MOA, okay? So I think that scope that you got will be fine, mate, because I had a look at it and I saw the specs there that it had 80 MOA of adjustment in it. So, you know, that's a fair amount. A lot of people get confused and think, okay, if I zero my scope, all of a sudden I've got 80 MOA of adjustment. Well, yeah, that's not always in one direction, okay? Keep that in mind. That's the entire adjustment range that you have in that particular scope. So, but I hope that answers your question. But yeah, definitely get one of those rails, and then you can try it and you can see, you know, how much better you can do. Usually, you know, if you're getting a like a 20 MOA rail, for example, you're going to, you know, easily get another 100 meters, you know, of distance out of a 22. So depending on ammo and everything, of course. So, you know, if you go for that 30 MOA rail, I don't see why you can't get out there and obviously still be able to shoot there at 50 with no problems. I've not shot closer than that when using those rails, so I don't know about that 30 meter mark, okay? That's just something you'll have to experiment with. Next question I got here is from Brad, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, love the content of the channel. When I applied for my license, my reason for acquiring was target and sports shooting, and the same for my first PTA for a rifle. I've since been invited to go hunting and would like to do the Farmer Assist program. I am restricted by my license. I have RE1, SC1 and SC2 endorsements on my license. When applying for more weapons, for example, a lever action shotgun, 300 Win Mag, etc., do I need to change anything with weapons licensing to allow me to hunt? Thanks and keep up the good work." Well, mate, I'm assuming you're here in Queensland. I could be wrong, but if you're here in Queensland, what happens is when you first apply for a license, basically on your A and B license, you will have recreational shooting, which means, you know, hunting or, you know, shooting on private property. And then you'll have sports and target, okay? Now the sports, target or club means exactly that, shooting at a range, shooting at paper targets or, you know, going in competitions and matches that they have. So when you first apply to get your license, you basically have to just get, you know, written off, I suppose, satisfy one of those, okay? And then you'll get the other added to your license at the time. So in other words, if you join a club and you apply for your license for A and B and you say that it's for sports and target use, you'll also receive that recreational endorsement on your license, okay? So you can do both. You can go out, you can do hunting, you can also go to a range. So you don't have to notify weapons licensing or anything like that. It's the same if you apply for a license and you've got a farmer or someone on private property that's rural, and they write a letter to say you're allowed to shoot on there. Well, then you don't have to go and join a club to satisfy the genuine reason to get that A and B license, okay? So in other words, you're satisfying the recreational endorsement. However, they'll also give you the sports and target endorsement, which will allow you to then take an A or B firearm to a range and be able to have a shoot, okay? So I hope that I haven't confused you there, mate, but basically that's how it works there. So no problem whatsoever. You have your A and B license for both uses. Next question I got here is from Mitch, and he says, "Hey Ozzie, I enjoyed the licensing walkthrough episode you made previously. Can you elaborate a little on the legalities of importing items like holsters and magazines? The Act really doesn't make good mention of them explicitly. I'm in Queensland. Cheers, mate." Okay, I'm not sure if you saw part of my beginner series, mate, on how to import firearms and parts. Okay, I went into it in quite great detail, so please have a look at that. It's just under the beginner series playlist on my YouTube channel. I'll still answer you here as well. Basically, you won't find it under the Weapons Act here in Queensland, okay? Because obviously importing stuff is federal, okay? So it all comes under the Customs Prohibited Imports Regulation 1956. So everything's under that, but please watch that video because I'll show you a lot in that. However, stuff like holsters, stuff that's not firearm related whatsoever. So, if you've got holsters or some mag holders or something like that, there's no problem in importing that sort of thing. That's fine. You don't need any permits or whatsoever to do that. But if you import an actual firearm magazine, complete different story, okay? You have to apply for a B709, which is an import permit from weapons licensing. Then once you get that, you can order the parts from overseas. So order your magazines. When they get sent here, Customs obviously intercept it. They hang on to them. They send you a letter. You then have to come in, make an appointment and produce your import permit. And then obviously they hand the goods over to you, okay? So that's how that works. But please have a look at that video, mate, because I do go into quite a bit of detail and explain the legislation around it. Okay, so next question I got here is from Greg, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, what's your thoughts on the Remington 700 as they don't seem to be very popular here in Australia?" Well, mate, the thing is they have been a little bit hit and miss with quality control, okay? Now, that's not just me going off any rumours. I can talk to you about my own personal experiences. The first Remington 700 that I bought was a Remington 700 308 Police Tactical, okay? A bolt action rifle, obviously. Now, I found it good for the first two shots, and then the third shot, it would just throw the round, I'm talking well over a couple of inches out at 100. So there was something definitely wrong with the rifle. I had numerous issues trying to get it to shoot consistently. And then after a year, I just gave up and traded it into the gun shop, okay? Because it was obviously out of warranty and I should have done something about it a lot earlier, but I endured with it. So yeah, that really put me quite off. But then I went to a Remington 700 Sendero in 300 Win Mag. I mean, that rifle just shot absolutely brilliantly, so accurate. And I had that for many years and it was just a flawless rifle. I never had any faults with it whatsoever. Then I went on to some other Remington 700s, and I've seen them with receiver holes drilled incorrectly, like misaligned, so you can't even put a proper rail on top, so I tell you, like the quality control there was very, very poor. But then I've had Remington 7615. It's worked flawlessly. I had that for many years. I ended up selling it because I bought the Ruger SR556 AR-15, so I really didn't have a need for the 7615 then. But I've had a friend with a 7615 and he's had no issues with his. I've shot it, shoots very well. So yeah, very sort of hit and miss, if you get what I mean. So I'm not saying they make rubbish, because you have a look at some of the high-end long-range platforms and they're built around that 700 action. Obviously they've got all different custom parts on it. So where I'm going with this is obviously the Remington 700 action is time tested, very, very reliable. So mate, yeah, it's, if you talk to, 5 shooters, there might be 3 of them that will absolutely hate Remington and not go anywhere near them because of quality control issues. Then you might have 2 that absolutely swear by them. So yeah, it's a hard one, but that to me is why they haven't been as popular here in Australia as what, say, for example, like Tikka or other brands are. All right, guys, so that's it for this month's Q&A. We had a lot of questions to get through, so I hope you enjoyed listening to the answers there. Thanks very much for submitting all those questions, guys. I really enjoyed it. So we'll leave the Q&A series at that for another month. Remember, if you want to become a part of this, all you need to do is just simply be a Patreon or PayPal supporter, and you can do that from as little as $1 a month. All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. So till next time, catch you then.